Okay. This meeting is being live streamed.
So we're on, right?
We are on. We are on. But let's see. Hello,
Okay.
everyone. I don't know what happened with YouTube, or we streamed through Zoom. I don't know what happened, but here we are. We are live now, and literally,
Yes.
I did nothing except try it again, and it happened. So
Happy Sunday, everyone, right?
Sunday. Happy Sunday indeed. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh.
Well, we are going to have a blast today because we are going to talk about how to stop the negative side of ego from hijacking our perception of reality and how we can do it in the now moment. We will share some tools so that you will be able to, have a little bit more control over what you experience in your life, or more control over through which filter you're looking at reality. So that is what we're going to do today. I hope that everything is going to be fine for the entire hour. Yeah,
exactly. Really excited about this. I think, with the last couple weeks that we've done, and we've talked about both sides of the ego, how to use it, what's in fear, what's in how to pause, take a moment and question, is there another opportunity? Is there another option? Is there another choice I can make? Opens us up to be in the positive flow of ego. And what's so fascinating, we were talking about this before went live, is what the media does. It creates this, not even a personal fear moment. It's like nothing in front of us is something's going to happen, but we're watching this big screen and it creates this energy. And then again, it does the same thing. It keeps us in fear-based ego versus like, wait a minute, what's another choice? What's another option? And so we have to be consciously aware in every now moment, more than ever, I think, because there's so much energy coming in to distract us away from walking in the positive place of ego.
Absolutely, because what occupies your mind becomes your reality, without a doubt. So being very, very aware and present in what occupies the space in your mind, because the true state of your mind is actually that of nothing. And then anything that is in this nothing is invited in, either through the positive side or the negative side of your ego. So it's like having people that you do not like sitting in your favorite sofa, changing the channels on your TV set. It's the same thing. You wouldn't invite those people into your living room. You would say, you know what, this is my home. I close the door, do not enter. But we don't realize that it's the same thing with thoughts. They become like visitors in our mind. And we think that we have to allow anyone, any visitor in. Well, it's not that way. Your mind is your home, and you can close the door to things that you don't want to allow to rent free space in your head.
Yeah.
And you have to evict the thoughts that are not beneficial for you. So I think that what we're going to do here today, or at least we are going to touch upon this today, is to understand that there are a couple of things that we need to do in order to know what triggers us. So the way we describe it in our course is that we have to go back into the past to see where the ego triggers were imposed upon us, where we were contaminated with these ego triggers. And it's usually fear, anxiety, depression, whatever it is in our past, that is the portal to the ego triggers. And then we carry this for our entire life into the now moment. And what we need to do is find the ego triggers in the past. And when we know that they are there and what they are, we can pause in the now moment to find the stillness within us, this blank state, this observer that is looking. Because if we want to change something in the future, we need to find this space in the now moment and start asking the right questions so that we can project into the future through the positive side of ego, not the negative side of ego. So knowing what the triggers are is a basic thing. And then in the now moment, understanding that there is a place within you that is a holy place, that is a sanctuary, and it's always there. Yes. To find that holy, beautiful sanctuary within you by not rushing, by not answering immediately, by taking back your own time in the now moment. And then when you have cleared your mind from the alien visitors, the thoughts and the wounds and all the stuff that you have in your head, you can project what you actually do want to have in your future. That is how you take control of all of this. And it sounds like, I don't know, science, rocket science, but it isn't. It's just knowing yourself and knowing the wounds, knowing the triggers, and then giving yourself a pause in the now moment so that you can project the right things into the future.
Yeah. One of the things that I think is a practical step to help people pause and to realign who they are is to remember the vision that they have for their life. And I think, and of who they, not vision of like what we want to accomplish, but the true vision of who we truly are, the soul inside of our body. So if our vision of ourselves is warrior, then we will manifest the warrior. If our vision of ourselves is love, then we'll manifest love. But when we forget the vision of ourselves, and then that moment comes to take us in a split second to decide, it's important that we take a step back and like, wait a minute, I am the observer of this. I am not that. I am here. I'm not there. It wants me there, and always that leaned forward position, off balance. But when I can remember, wait, that's why affirmations are so important. Back here I have, I am safe, loved, free, abundant, powerful. I have to remind myself, wait a minute, am I to be the fighter, or am I to be the space holder for myself and those around me? Oh, I'm to be the space holder. Okay.
Yeah. One of the affirmations that I always go to is when I say, I am the light in the darkness, I am the love in the fear, I am the calmness in the storm, to remind myself of what I am in relationship to the negative stuff that is out there. Otherwise, I become the negative stuff instead. So when we go back, in order to remember who we are, you know how when we are triggered, we don't understand ourselves. Why am I triggered by this? And then comes the question, what is wrong with me? There is absolutely nothing wrong with you. What you need to look at is what happened to me. I think Oprah and a psychologist whose name I don't remember right now, they published a book maybe a year ago that is called What Happened to Me. To go back and ask the question, what happened to me? Because there's nothing wrong with you. You just need to find the trigger. And in order to find the trigger, you need to go back and ask, what happened to me? What opened this portal? What pulled this negative ego in front of me? And it became my habitual way of looking at reality right now. So you're talking about remembering who we are and seeing ourselves, well, I'm a warrior, I am love, I am this. In order to do that, we need to stop asking the question, what is wrong with me? And start asking, what happened to me? Because that's a more loving way of looking at your mistakes. We all make mistakes in this world. We all are ego triggered. We all are in a place where we can't see clearly. But it's not wrong. It's just a question of correcting it, going back and finding it. And usually, as I say, it's a question of fear and anxiety that was inflicted upon us and allowed the negative side of ego to become our guidance instead of the positive side of ego, which is always, what do I want to have in this reality? What are my dreams and my goals here? The good side of it, so to speak. So it is important to become kind to oneself, really kind to oneself, to find the programming or the conditioning or even the cultural inflict that has been put upon us.
Exactly. This, I'm drawing a picture. I had to grab some.
Yeah.
we come into the world clean clean slate on a blank piece of paper, and we're
Yes.
happy, and we enter, and immediately we meet our mother and father, and all of a sudden, like, things happen here.
Yes.
And we meet someone else, and we start getting marred over, we meet our siblings, this happens, fear happens, we get hit, we get punished wrong. So pretty soon we start identifying with all the marks on us as
Yes.
who we are, versus the truth of who we are is what we came into the world to be. That clean slate, that observer, that one who receives love, that one who emits through with their voice until they get what they want, the one who is fully just in themselves, like we were talking about. Our brand new baby twice has just pooped everywhere the house, and it has caused like quite a scene in my home. My wife, I hear screaming, I run over there, the baby's pooped everywhere. But I thought, that's human, just to be in oneself, not to concern myself with how you view me. I'm just myself and being. And so I think our job is to, when you say what happened to me, it's identifying, oh, I remember when my mom said that to me, that was this mark. I remember when I was hit, that was this mark. I started to identify these marks are not us.
No, exactly. They are the patterns. They are the subconscious frequency. They are the negative ego mask that we put on every time, because it's a question of protecting oneself from that.
Yes. Yes.
And it's always invoking fear. If you feel like you need to protect yourself, then you're acknowledging a fearful reality outside of you. So starting to look for good things in reality. And this is why it's so important not to say what's wrong with me, because that would be to focus on the bad stuff instead of asking the question, what happened to me?
Yes. Yes.
It's more neutral. It opens up what happened to me. And then going back and looking at it and saying, okay, I see where I opened the portal for this. Yes. I can close that portal because I am whole now.
Yes. I mean, a good example of when you and I, early on, when you and I first met, and I was describing that I had this, I've talked about this on a live, but that I have had this black tar, just, I could not, no matter what I did, I could not get clean. And I hated myself. I mean, hated myself before like the devolving of my ego into my healing process. I did not want to be human. What I thought perfection and holiness was essentially to have nothing of myself, but I could be ethereal clothing to the Holy Spirit. I thought if that was, if God could just, if I could not exist, but people could see the outer layer, and that's just because I hated myself, because I felt so dirty, because I thought something was wrong with me, until I finally felt safe enough to start looking at, wow, yeah, I didn't do this to myself. I would never do this to myself. But I remember when that happened to me, and that I've identified as me, not the event. That stickiness was the event. It wasn't me. And I carried it as me. And I think that's what we're talking about, is separating. First, I think we have to identify the ego.
Yes.
Put distance between it. And then decide, is the ego, are we going to use it in fear, or are we going to use it to project a more positive reality, right?
Absolutely. When you ask the question, what's wrong with me, you become one with what's wrong with you. You become one with that. But if you say, what happened to me, there is a separation between the stillness and your true identity and the things that are outside created and co-created. Because as a child, you cannot be responsible for your creation, because you're depending on parents and their creation around you. They are actually responsible for your creation. So if that becomes you, then of course you will have emotional pain, because that is not who you are. So just separating yourself from that by asking, what happened to me? The trick is to not become entangled in the victimhood. That's the trick, to look at it and say, okay, I get it. I know why I'm reacting to this in the now moment, because that happened to me in the past, but not investing the feelings in it, just looking at it. What happened to me has to be looked from a perspective where you feel that it is okay to look at it, to not be pulled into the victimhood of it. Because if you are pulled into the victimhood of it, then again, you're looking through the negative side of ego, which will be your habitual way of looking into it. So the questions are really important. And this Sunday Live is going to be about the questions, because in this first state, when you go back and look into your past, you have to ask the right question. And the right question is, what happened to me? Not what's wrong with me now. What happened to me then? That is a way to separate yourself from the masks.
That's right. That's right.
So that, I think, is one of the first steps, to look into your past. And we do that in our course. So as soon as it's out there, you will be able to do it in a more detailed way. But if you want to try to do it now by yourself, you have to go back and find some key memories and then look at them and see what happened to you. And it can be small things, like, for me, for instance, I always felt that my mother didn't want me, and small things in my reality would show me that she didn't want me. Like, there's no room for Gordana here. She'll have to do this and we'll do that. She was always separating me. Small things, which sent a signal to me that when I feel that someone is trying to do something and not include me in it, I will feel that there is something wrong with me. So I go, what's wrong with me? Why don't they love me? As a child, that was the question that was echoing back and forth in my head. What's wrong with me? There is absolutely nothing wrong with me. There's something wrong with my mother, but that's a different story. But in a way, I become that wrong, even though it's her stuff, not my stuff. So this is why it's important. It's sticky otherwise. But if you can go and say, okay, what happened to me, not what's wrong with me, you separate those things. So that's step number one, to be able to see, where did these wounds come up and who was involved.
Right. It also helps you see that which was done unto us was done unto us by someone that something happened to them. It's not who they are, it's what they've taken on. And if we don't ask the question, what happened to me, but instead, what's wrong with me, we then become the other link in the chain of perpetuating the cycle. So we break the cycle by asking what happened to me, not to indict the other, but to at least acknowledge at the very minimum that behavior brought into me was not healthy.
Yeah. You know, I was reading a book which my son recommended to me. It's written by a Swedish writer, Alex Schulman, and it's called Burn All My Letters. And he was dealing with his own anger because he could see in an illuminated moment that his children were afraid of him. And he says one thing which is really illuminating. He says, like, I was astounded that my children were reacting to my reaction of the world, not their own reactions of the world. They were kind of living through him. So he starts on a journey to find, where does this fear and anger originate in him? So he goes to a psychologist, and the psychologist tells him to make a map of all the relatives in his family. And he does that, mother and father and their relatives. And then she asks him, or I don't know if it was a man or a woman that was his psychologist, but anyway, she asked him to draw straight lines between the people that are communicating in a normal way with each other in his family tree, and then to draw a zigzag line between the people that are not communicating in a right way, in people whose negative side of the ego is making them want things or cut people off, or, you know, what ego does to us. And so he did that. And when he was done, he looked at it and he could see that all the zigzag lines were on his mother's side. And he could also see that they were all pointing to one person, his grandfather, which is illuminating. When you can do that, you can see, where does this come from? So this book is about his grandfather and his grandmother and their relationship and what happened to them. And he goes back and back and back. And in the end of the book, he actually describes where the first wound is made. And it is in his grandfather. And it is about a woman deceiving him. And that it becomes a pattern which goes through every single person on that side of the family.
Yes. Yes.
So finding that is very illuminating. It doesn't change you, but it gives you an understanding of where does this originate? Where can I find its source and then detach myself from it? Because it's not you, it is something in the movement around you. So detaching yourself from this, that is the first step.
Oh man. I'm just, as you're saying that, I'm thinking about all the things that I have experienced, that was said to me, and all the insecurities that I carried. It's both liberating. It's also okay to grieve.
Yes.
There is so much sadness that I think, like, when we see what's happened to us, what's been done to us, in whatever banner, virtue, discipline, the right way, whatever, godliness, religion, whatever. And we want to do it to an innocent puppy. Or you want to do it to whatever innocence is in someone's view. And this is where I think is super helpful for humans to detach and actually observe whatever our view is of the most innocent thing in our life. Look at it and then say, would you do to that innocence what happened to you, what happened to us? And if the answer is no, then it's time to start looking at what else happened and what else would you not do to that? What else would you not do to that? And then identify that this innocence is actually us.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, the innocence is this stillness that I'm talking about. The innocence is this observer within, because the observer is open to all the experiences. That is why those wounds are there, because as children, we come in vulnerable and open. For me, being vulnerable is one of the most powerful states ever. People will say, well, you open up and you might be hurt, but can you imagine the courage it takes to stay vulnerable, even if you've been hurt your entire life? That is courage to me. Yes. And that is a powerful state. That is a powerful state that will help others. You create space for others to be vulnerable with you. You know, my son said one thing the other day, and I have to quote him because that was one of the most beautiful things I've heard for a long time. Let me see if I can find. Oh, I asked him, because I could hear him talk with his friends, and I asked him, how can you stay calm, so calm in those discussions? And he says, if I stay calm, I can see your ego. And why would I answer your ego? And then he goes, that's not who you are. I know you. So I stay calm so you can feel safe enough to wake up or find yourself or find your center. Yes. For me, that is to understand really what that means, to be vulnerable and yet be very, very powerful, because you stand in your center. You're able to see other people's ego and to not lash out and to not react and not to answer, because you know that this is not their true self. Can you see the power in understanding this? Yes. When you do that, you become untouchable because you have a supervision. You can see when other people are ego triggered. And when they are speaking from ego, you do not need to answer that. You can just, his power is that he can lovingly stay there and he will forgive you. I mean, it is the ultimate power. So understanding the stillness from within is to tap into your full power, because when you do that, your vision is no longer filtered through the ego. It is clear. So you can see the filters that other people are using. You can see how they are ego triggered. which is a signal to you, I do not need to answer this.
Right. That's why I think I'm going to draw my picture here again.
You're an artist today.
I am an artist. But we come into the world clean slate, open and vulnerable, receiving everything that is presented to us. Babies have no choice but to receive.
Yes.
Then all these marks happen because we're receiving everyone else's ego triggers and everyone else's traumas and everyone else's pain and everyone else in order. And I believe this is the hero's journey. I really believe that we are here to be this, experience this, so that we can come back to this.
Yes.
And then what is this space? This space is because in my TED Talk, I say, I define vulnerability as the courage to experience love in its purest form, to wake back up and say, if I am going to heal and be open and have the courage to receive love again, I also have the courage to say no to that and those who seek to imprint upon me their version of my reality instead of the one I want to create. So with that vulnerable courage comes our articulation to say yes or no, which is very similar to yes, I will go into this ego state of fear, or no. And in no, we can turn on other realities, other possibilities.
Yes, absolutely. Because it's a question of, again, asking the right questions. For me, I've been doing this for the last 2 years, and it is to be brutally honest with myself. When I am in a situation where I feel like the werewolf waking up in me, the negative side of my ego wanting things, if I am in a conversation with someone and I feel triggered, my responsibility is to ask, what am I adding to the situation? What am I adding to the situation? Am I adding clarity or confusion? Am I adding love or fear? Am I adding ego or soul space, or more the positive side of my ego? What am I adding to the situation? And being very, very honest to myself when I'm answering the question. Because sometimes we add confusion because we're angry, we want to punish the other one. So we confuse them, like manipulation and stuff. And if I'm not honest with myself, then I allow the negative side of ego to create something between us where one of us will be a victim and the other one will be a dictator. Yes. And when I am totally honest in that moment and I say, okay, I'm not adding clarity here. How can I add more clarity? Without my ego screaming, you're the victim. I add clarity to it and it becomes easy. It's ease, it's not pain. So asking the question in the now moment, what am I adding to this? If you can see that someone is ego triggered, then asking yourself, why am I answering to this? Why am I adding more of the same stuff? I can not add anything, or even better, I can add some love to this.
Yeah, that's good.
So the questions are really, really important. Asking them in the most inflamed situations, having the presence to not just jump in and swirl around with the movement, to stay in the stillness and say, wait, we are ego triggered here. What's happening here? And how can we shift this?
Yes. I think I talked about this in the last slide, but media is me in ego. Dia is Dios, God. The ego God is the media. And it's not that ego is bad, ego is neutral, but the God of the ego is fear if we don't subdue and make it love. Media creates this false reality that constantly, even if it's, I mean, the story arc has to go, start here, have a vision for where I'm supposed to go, dip down, that's the suspense, to rise. That's always the anxiety resolution storyline. Well, of course, media will constantly put that out as there's always something going to happen. Oh, the shoe's going to fall, the carpet's going to be pulled out, someone's at the other side, what's down that corner. It constantly creates fear. We're going to go to World War III. These guys are going to nuke this. It's going to be all horrible. But yet when we say, no, wait a minute, I go outside, the birds are still there. I listen, and there's the sound of children playing. There's the sound, it's that when we can reclaim as love as our focal point, all the fear dissolves.
Yes, it does. And it's a question of understanding your state of consciousness, becoming aware of your state of consciousness. We are conditioned to answer, I'm afraid, or I'm anxious. But if we ask the question in a different way, if we say to ourselves, what is my state of consciousness? And then answer with, I am in a state of ... whatever it is. If you say, I'm in a state of fear, it's a hell of a difference to say, I am afraid. Everything that follows I am becomes you. But if you say, I am in a state of fear, again, there's this separation from the fear and you, who you truly are. And it makes it easier to handle it. How do you handle something that is a part of you? You can't sew away your arm or something. Fear can feel like that if you express it in words where you say, I am afraid. But if you say, I am in a state of fear, it's almost like opening a door, entering a room. Oh, there's fear here. No, thank you. And you close the door and you walk out, because this is a state of fear and this is you opening the door. But if you say, I'm afraid, then you are in the room and you don't know how you entered. It's an enormous difference. It's a question of authority, autonomy, and being authentic within yourself to understand that you're the stillness always. That is your true nature. And then everything else is a movement, and it's a choice.
It's a choice. Yes.
I know it's really hard. I am first to look at news and go, oh, horrible things are happening. But that is to choose a state of consciousness or a state of mind, which is not my true self. My true self is the stillness, choosing it. So I can say, no, I'll look outside the window and I see these birds, as you say, and I hear them, and everything is fine. Another thing is, when you fall prey to media, people who do have compassion and empathy for others will be in a state of fear all the time, even though nothing is happening in the room where you are. So you're experiencing a second reality, which is not your true reality. So it's a second-hand experience, which is giving you fear in the now moment. For me, this was an aha moment when I was watching a video where there was this brutal policeman. He just threw a woman on the floor, and I watched this and it made me shiver in my body. And I was thinking, why am I reacting to this? Because my brain does not know the difference between me being thrown that way in my room where I am, or someone else being thrown in another room or another place or over the sea or wherever it is. I'm not saying that we shouldn't feel, because we are human and we should feel, but it's a trick to keep you in a state of fear all the time. If you do not see the difference between where you are in the now moment, your stillness, and you can't help the world if you are in constant fear. You have to find this sanctuary, this holy place, in order to help others do the same. So taking care of that holy place is one of the most important things if you really want to help people in this world.
There's two things that come up as you're sharing that is, number one, when I was I was in the news, I was a journalist and on TV, and I always thought it'd be funny if, and I said this to every newsroom I was at, and it fell on deaf ears. Of course, you'll hear why in a sec, but I thought it'd be funny. I was a reporter at Como, KNDU, KNDO, and KBB TV. And I thought it'd be funny if it said like KBB TV, where we hold our weathermen accountable. And then every time that the weatherman misses the forecast, he gets it wrong. Something has to happen to him. Like maybe he's standing out in the water, and if he keeps getting it wrong, he has to go deeper and deeper. It gets better, and it'd be funny, and people would watch. But now in hindsight, of course, they would never keep themselves accountable to what they put out into the world. But I thought that'd be such a great marketing shtick that everyone tune in. Oh, what's happening today?
Yes.
Well, I thought, could you imagine if we held them accountable for every single thing they put out into the world that is false projection? All the wars, the trauma, and not telling the truth of the real pains, the real traumas, to bring light to where there needs to be light, but they're putting light on a reality that doesn't need to be projected. And so holding accountable, I don't know if it will ever happen. It's more, we hold ourselves accountable by not plugging into the media, not tuning it in, not watching it, not giving them what they want from us. But the other thing is, when you're talking about that reality that you tune into, is it going to happen to you? And it creates a sense of fear. We as human beings serve, knowingly or unknowingly, the law of free will. We just, it cannot be broken. So they're trying to get us to submit to energetically a reality that isn't true. If we say no, it cannot happen. This is why, like Sean Zimmer and some of these people walk through the blockades in Canada, and they say no, they say you can't come in, and say, yes, I can. I'm a free man under this. And then they eventually are let through. There might be some false resistance, but if we say, this is sovereignty, this is what humanity is waking up to, this is what reclaiming the power that we have when we're in our own power, not playing into the false reality. So there's a couple of things at play. When we believe the false lie, we submit our will, we're stuck. If we reclaim it and choose love, and even if it presents and say, no, my truth is this, and keep going, it can't stop us.
Yeah, it's a question of being tuned into who you truly are always, and standing up for that. Using your free will to choose what you are creating in your reality.
Yes.
And if you fall prey to fear that someone else inflicts upon you, like some parents do to their children, or school, or society, or culture, or whatever it is, then you open the door to your mind, to all these people and ideas and beliefs, to rent space without paying you at all.
That's right.
They just live there, and they become your habitual way of looking at reality, which means that you're actually not creating a reality of your own choice. You're creating a reality of someone else's choice. If I would speak my language, that would be that they have a certain frequency, you hook on to that frequency, and then you're creating a reality based on that frequency, not on your frequency and your path and your purpose in life. So how do you shift that? Because when you start creating a reality that is not yours, that's an ego trigger. That's a big ego trigger, because you find yourself in a reality where you cannot identify yourself in it, because it isn't yours.
Yes.
It can start with your parents. They tell you things about this reality, and you believe that, and that becomes your frequency, and you vibrate on that low frequency or different frequency than yours, and your reality will not be what you want it to be. So it will be focused on the things that you don't have, of the things that you need, because you're not having them in your reality, because you're not focused on your desires and your dreams, on the positive side of your ego, which perpetuate these kind of things.
Right.
So detaching from them is to go back in time, see where the things happen to you, detach from that frequency, and then start looking for the things that you actually want in this reality, the things that you actually desire to have. And how do you perpetuate these things? Well, you do that by, when you see something that you like, let's say that you live alone, you have no partner, and then you see people kissing and holding hands. Instead of going, oh my God, I can never have that, you would say, oh, I like that. That's a blueprint. Give me more of that. I order this. or better.
Yeah.
That is an order which the quantum field, the universe, the source listens to and says, okay, changing the order. So it gives you opportunities to explore what you actually do want instead of what you don't have and don't want. That's the difference between the positive side of ego and the negative side of ego. But the negative side of ego is always connected to the past. And you have to start there. You have to go back and say, where was it done to me and what was done to me? And how can I change this? Is this my frequency or not? And if it's not your frequency, then sacrifice the victimhood and find your power in the now moment and start looking for the things that you actually want in your reality, whatever they might be. I took this as an example because a lot of people live alone and they dream of a relationship. And when they see others, they are reminded of what they don't have. So they continue to create a reality of not having that. So becoming very much aware in the now moment, asking yourself, what do I want actually?
That's right. That is in this emotional intelligence training that I went to and have talked about it quite often. They ask, one of the exercises in the first weekend is you get partnered up with someone and they say, what do you want? What do you want? What do you want? What do you want? What do you, and it's just repeated over. And then they start going faster. What do you want? What do you, and then they start screaming at you. And it's so interesting. I couldn't articulate at first. Like, I'm like, what do you want? They're like, hurry up, answer. Yeah, they put these pressure time, like they invoke, like, I'm like, I don't know I didn't know what I wanted, but I did know what I want. I wanted to be loved. I wanted to be free. I wanted to be safe, love, free, abundant, powerful. Those are the things I wanted. But in this exercise, before I could get to that place, I was like, I don't know. And they say, everyone that says, I don't know, that's a lie. Everyone knows. It's just finding the courage to actually say what it is you want. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And so these gal doing the exercise as an example in front of us, and we're all watching like, whoa. She's like, what do you want? And then she's like, I want great sex. And everyone was like, wow, okay. It was hilarious. I was like,
why not?
Okay, why not? That's what you wanted. Like, and I found so much joy and like happiness that she was free enough to say that. And it was like childlike. It was just like, that's great.
Yeah, but it is great. Here's the thing. Why is it such a hard thing to answer what you want? Why do you need to think about that? If I would ask you what you don't want, you would give me a list that is 2 kilometers long because it's so easy. And this is because the negative filter, the negative ego filter is default. It is by default. We jump into it habitually because we've been practicing it for such a long time. So exactly. So you need to shift it and then continue to work for looking for the things that you want. My mantra when people ask me, what do you want? I say, I want to be happy, healthy, and wealthy.
I love it.
Happy, healthy, and wealthy. That's what it is.
Yes.
But it takes time to find what is it that I want. I remember as a 30-year-old woman, if someone would ask me, what do you want? I would say, I don't want to feel this pain anymore. But it starts with, I don't want to feel this pain anymore. I actually want to feel healthy and happy and wealthy. That is what I want. And it's underneath the surface. But if you're programmed and your habitual way of answering this is with what you don't want, then it's tough to find that. And you are looking through the negative side of your ego, putting you in victimhood. When I say I want to be happy, healthy, and wealthy, I feel good because that is what I want. And I can say happy, well, what does that mean to me? Well, it means to me to see that everyone I love is enjoying themselves. I am enjoying myself. Healthy, well, it means that I can move freely. I have nothing going on in my body that doesn't feel good. And wealthy, well, that can be, I have love, I have sunshine, I have a garden, I have money, whatever it is that means wealth to you is embedded in this. And it gives you another frequency. You can feel it. It's a shift. So answering with what you do want and being pushed into answering what you do want. I love that exercise. We'll have to do that when we meet in real life.
It's a really good one.
Yeah.
This, you know, everyone listening, I understand that it can seem very complicated, but it really is so simple. The simplicity of this reality is that we are the creator of whatever we want. And we, before we entered this body, we knew everyone's playing their perfect role. We knew who we'd get as parent. We knew the experiences. We could see, we forget it. We come into the body, we experience it. We get all this trauma. We forget that we are the pure soul experiencing the love, light, and beauty of this creation. And when we can get back to this place, as opposed to living like this and trying to see dimly through all this trauma, but we can get back to clean slate, happiness, healthiness, wealthiness is, of course, the state of being. It's like the birds, nature is not withering. It's always growing. The tree, you're not looking at the tree like, wow, I expect it to be smaller next year. You expect it to be bigger next year, because that's the natural state of it all, is growth and abundance and expression. And I love trees so much. We've talked about it because I find the tree to be the state of vulnerability. It receives everything and emits everything. It is a treasure trove for birds to find rest, for insects, for ants. Trees are so beautiful. And this is the tree of life that we can be reminded of, that the placenta looks like the tree of life. Everything is the tree of life.
Yes.
We are part of
yes. I love how you use the word treasure, because I wanted to read something that I wrote this morning about the treasure. And it's that we need to be able to remind ourselves of the treasure that we are carrying within each and every one of us. How you describe this tree is actually how this inner sanctuary within each and every one of us is. It is there unconditionally for us, giving us shadow, light, shelter, whatever we need, it is there for us. So at the center of your being is a holy place. Approach it as you would an altar in a beautiful temple, with grace, integrity, and awe. Feel the love, peace, and acceptance that is there. It is always there for you. It is a breathing space that is always available to you. Wherever you go, this holy sanctuary is with you everywhere. To connect to that, become the observer. Do not answer quickly. Stand in, own your own time, stand in it, and then answer. But be in this space. If you can't just relax yourself into it, then breathing into it is a way to do it. Doing the 5-5-5 breathing that we're talking about, that is a way for you to, with your physical body, send signals to your brain that everything is okay, so that you can descend into this holy space, which is usually here in your heart space.
Yes.
To connect your heart to your brain so that your ego can't hijack that, to allow love to be the principle. Because without that love, which is the principle, you cannot create a divine reality. You will only create an ego-minded reality, which is based on fear. And that's no principle. Love is the principle here. So understanding that it's always with you. You cannot lose it. It is with you wherever you go. The trick is to be able to connect to it very fast, and breathing makes it like that.
Yes.
So
beautiful.
I hope that people listening and watching this will realize, as you say, it's not that complicated. It's a question of giving yourself time to breathe and space to think. so that you don't act habitually. And then do not beat yourself up if you act habitually, because you've been doing it for your entire life. It takes time. Have patience with yourself. Be your best friend. Forgive yourself for making a mistake. Forgive yourself for answering from the negative side of the ego. It's okay. As my son said, it's okay to make mistakes. I can see that you're in pain because you're acting from your negative side of your ego. When you can see it in other people, don't react to it. Pull back, stand there. And they will always appreciate that. The ones that don't appreciate it, they are not your tribe.
Right. That's right.
So everything is good.
Everything is good.
Yes.
And I want to share one thing before we wrap. As we reclaim this truth of ourselves and we see the vision, as we leave the media's trap of fear and we go out to explore this reality, there will be, and this is a warning for everyone to understand what is waiting. There are camps set up on your journey, and they'll say, come sit with us. And we'll go, and all of a sudden they'll say, now identify as us. And that will always be there. And it is up to us to say, is this what I want? Do I want to be a whatever title? Or like I've meditated with some of the most prolific Buddhist monks and rabbis and pastors and preachers and Hindu, like, am I the one with an exploring, or am I going to, and I'm not saying one's good or bad, but there will always be camps to say, claim that I am Jewish, I am Christian, I am Buddhist, it's like, well, we're all the soul experiencing this reality. I'm not saying that any one of those are bad. I am just saying to everyone, there will never be a lack of some group saying, take our title and become as us, versus what do we really want to explore in this reality? Do we want to explore and be one of those, perhaps for a time and a season? But we weren't born as that. It's still us choosing to experience that. And I think that just helps free up people right now in their exploration of leaving all these institutions and labels to say, yeah, you came into this world not as that. Never forget that. I think that's what I want to share with people. Just never forget that.
Yes, absolutely. What I feel is important to add to this is that asking yourself what you want is one part, but then asking yourself why you want it. That will give you a direction. Some things you want habitually because you've been deprived of it as a child. I want to be seen. I want to be heard. I want to be valued. All of these things, you don't need other people for that. You need to find it within yourself. So asking yourself, what is it that I want? For instance, when we talked about the people who have no relationship and they look at people who hug, ask yourself, why do you want that? If the answer is because everyone else has a partner, that's the negative side of ego telling me. But if the answer is, for instance, I want to share my life with someone, that would be the positive side of ego. So asking why is as important as what do I want here? Why do I want it? It might be that you actually don't want it. When you ask the question, why do I want it? You might not want it. So becoming aware of where you are in the now moment and just asking the right questions is so liberating. And trusting the answers, of course, that's another thing. Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you. So good.
It is. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you everyone for watching. Suresh, Tony, Gloriana, thank you. And can't wait to do next week. It's going to be beautiful.
Yes, it's going to be beautiful. Thank you everyone for today.